The plan describes a gradual Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. However, Netanyahu said via a video statement today that the occupation army will remain in most of the territory as part of the plan drawn up with Trump. How do you see this contradiction in the statements, especially now that you heard Ibrahim there talking about the idea that this proposal is basically a lifeline for the Israelis? Khaled, are you with us?
Is this question for me? I'm sorry.
Yes, it's you. Yes.
Yes. I mean, I want to point out to a very controversial point that's been announced in the 20-point plan by Netanyahu and Trump yesterday concerning the fact that there are no deadlines. No clear deadlines for the Israeli withdrawal from the occupied Gaza Strip. Besides the fact that there is one clause that basically refers to the fact that Israel will remain present in a so-called buffer zone for the foreseeable future and until all the Israeli conditions are met. And I've just been reading, we have a report on Axios, which has very good access to the White House and to the Israeli government, noting that some of the Arab countries that were negotiating with Trump have expressed unhappiness with some of the changes that have taken place to the plan they agreed to with Trump during their meeting a week ago, particularly concerning the deadlines for the withdrawal and the presence in the so-called buffer zones, which include, of course, along the border between Egypt and Gaza, known as the Salah ad-Din corridor, or the area of Rafah. Egypt has made clear from the beginning that it would not tolerate a permanent Israeli presence on its border because this violates the Camp David agreements and also violates other agreements that were reached between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. In all practical terms, and in light of what Netanyahu mentioned yesterday on the fact that Israel will maintain a permanent security presence or occupation presence in Gaza, we've been reading that new negotiations are going to start to provide more details on the issue, particularly of the withdrawal of the Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip. But the way the things stand right now, the plan, and unfortunately very much tilting towards Netanyahu's positions on the presence of the Israeli troops. Before this agreement was announced, there was a meeting for about 6 hours on Sunday between Netanyahu and President Trump's personal envoy, Steve Witkoff, as well as his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, in which Netanyahu obviously introduced many amendments that the Arab side were not informed of and the Hamas side was not informed of before the announcement of the plan. Again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's not just the issue of the withdrawal. It's the issue of this so-called international stabilization force, which is supposed to be made up of Arab and international contributors along with Palestinians in order to be responsible for the security in Gaza. Practically speaking, we haven't heard so far of any announcements by Arab or Muslim countries saying they are going to be ready to send troops in Gaza. And some Arab and Muslim countries believe that these kind of international stabilization force will have more of an advisory role while giving more authority to Palestinians themselves, whether a new police force that's being trained by Egypt or Qatar or in coordination with the Palestinian Authority. So even though the plan has some positive aspects in terms of Trump's announcement that the war should end, that Israel will not annex Gaza, there remains to be many complicated issues concerning the schedule of the withdrawal of the Israeli troops, considering Netanyahu's own stand, and who will govern exactly Gaza, what role will this international stabilization force has. These are all questions that remain to be open. And as Mr. Darawi mentioned, we're still waiting at the same time for Hamas official response, which has not come through. And in light of the threat that was made by Trump and Netanyahu, that in case Hamas does not agree to this plan, this will practically mean maintaining this genocide policy and war crimes that the Israelis are committing in Gaza. And we've seen, Rihab, that even as the agreement has been announced, the killing did not stop in Gaza. Today, we have over 40 Palestinians who've been killed so far. Israeli tanks continue to proceed close to the center of Gaza City. So I guess we will still need to wait and see until we get a better understanding about how this agreement is going to be carried out.
Okay, now Ibrahim, you heard Khaled there talking about the idea of being major issues. There are major issues in the plan itself, and you've also stated this as well. Now, critics have argued that Trump's plan avoids pressing the Israelis to end the occupation, as you've also stated. Is Washington deliberately doing this to somehow sidestep or, protect the Israelis from any sort of accountability, in addition to possibly delaying, postponing, or even trying to end the idea of a two-state solution?
Yeah, I must reiterate that the US aid isn't about a two-state solution right now. They don't care for it now. But Israel's benefits come first, and we saw that Netanyahu was in trouble. Basically, he couldn't go to France or any countries that respect the law because he is condemned, he is accused, and he could be put in jail. And so any countries that have to do with the International Court of Justice, Netanyahu cannot deal with them. And so yeah, to save face, basically, they put this plan. But I think the major prize for the Palestinians is a ceasefire, and so we must confirm this, and this is what Cairo has been trying to do: ceasefire, providing humanitarian aid, reconstruction, and then a two-state solution. And I think that the Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, they have made it clear we are talking about mediators and balancing countries here, especially after striking Al Doha. Everyone has a problem, and and we need real solutions and an apology that Qatar didn't mediate and weren't going to mediate until Netanyahu apologized to Qatar, and what actually happened. He apologized to them, and yeah, we can build on this foundation. But are we being delusional that the USA can trick Netanyahu like it's tricking the Palestinians? No, the Palestinians have been long tricked up till this moment, and so the problem here with diplomacy and politically is stopping the war. This is the main issue here, and so yeah, we need a clear vision and a formal opinion, which what happened from the Arab and Islamic countries that welcomed Trump's initiative to stop the war, and there is the opinion of the peoples. Everyone is refusing Trump's control and administration of the Gaza Strip, and this weird combination that the peoples of all countries are thinking of as occupation of an Arab and Islamic country. We cannot have an Israeli occupation and then have another American Britain occupation. But here, always the diplomacy wants to take advantage of any of the current victories, like a ceasefire, humanitarian aid, reconstruction, and even disarmament of Hamas. Hamas doesn't have arms. Israel said this, that they ended Hamas, and they ended around 75% of Hamas. But forcing this Hamas out of Gaza is a catastrophe, because Hamas is the Palestinian people, basically, and I think that the Palestinian factions will not allow them to be forced or isolated from other countries. So this is and so yeah, they're talking about arms that they know nothing about, and here Cairo took pledges from Hamas that they won't be there in the second day of a ceasefire, so saying that Hamas will not be there at all and will not have any arms. This is agreed upon already, and they had Hamas pledges to reach a ceasefire. Around 100 Palestinians are killed every day, and around 1,000 or even a couple thousand are injured every day. We're talking about lots of martyrs and injured. This not to mention the people who are missing. So yeah, no one can imagine what Israel is doing. There is a collective genocide. And so what the diplomacy has reached today, the Arab diplomacy has reached today, I think that they will pressure Hamas to accept this, because this is the last solution basically, because the far-right coalition want to isolate the Gaza Strip and force and displace all the civilians in the Palestinian Rafah and Mawasi. And you're talking about a third to fourth of the whole
Yes.
Gaza Strip area. And so here